Good morning, livers, kidneys, beatniks, beet rickets, grass shoots, bumblebees, and bumbletwoos. Breezies. Baked beans. And 2 foot. 2 feet. Oh, who else is going to make me laugh? Oh, like I care. I'm sorry, I was just reading some stupid little, extra small writing. And it says in the live chat, unable to connect to chat, please try again later. I'm like, who are you telling? And then if it's not able to connect, then why are you there? Why do I have to still suffer you in your space? Bastard! Good morning. Elliot. Like a lot. And today's a great day. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm kind of looking forward to it for a lot longer than I wish I was looking forward to it. Today for me is a kind of graduation day. And I'll confess to you why, because it's quite private. But nothing is really private. Not ultimately. It can't be. Unless one sequesters himself in a limited frame of thinking. Then it can be. But only to them. If by staring into a corner, standing there in a room, could make one believe that what they do is private, so long as they don't recognize the rest of their space, the rest of the room, and the rest of the entirety of the universe that is standing there too. Like not even in the rest of the room, but also in the corner. Wax poetic or waxing moon? Both. Oh gosh, today's gonna be a good day, I reckon. Cause feeling pretty cheeky. Jokes and fun aside, like adjacent, walking with, always there, never left behind. Because what else is life? If not mustering the good laugh, the good chuckle. It's a little chilly. October 3rd, a day that I'm singing. Hence the clothing, I guess, which is funny because I'm often half naked in these things. It's just how I prefer to be. And you catch me. But the title is, I reckon, quite succinct enough and poignant, / self-explanatory, that my meaning confession can be like an analogy a learning vehicle. As an example, taking something that can certainly be abstract. In fact, I encourage it because that's where we can all start or end, in the abstraction, the formless, as opposed to the formed. Because I'm encouraging this expansion and contraction of new paradigm being, which is less dualistic in separation and more coupled and bidirectional or multi-directional. Because as soon as it's bidirectional, it's really just like multi. Just moment to moment, you move, just choose in a direction. You can go anywhere and everywhere. I'm going to do my double door because it's Thursday and there ain't no fucking grass to cut, but it's a contract. Something they got to make money. And it's on the ledger. So somebody's got to pay. Because if these people were fucking free, they'd look out in the grass and be like, oh, the grass doesn't fucking need to get cut today. But no, they're not looking at the grass. That's how they can kill it so easily. They're looking at their empty bank accounts, which I can't blame them. Whose fucking bank account isn't empty? It's a joke because all bank accounts are empty. Bank accounts don't contain anything except agreements of enslavement. That rhymed less, but it's fucking true. Hold on. Oh, I already did it. So it's just loud to me. I hope it's not loud for you. You deserve better. What are you graduating, Elliot? Thank you for asking. That's so kind. I don't really remember which sacred scripture or sacred anime, because the message is the medium that I like. It entered my awareness, but wherever it entered from, I heard it, felt it, knew it, and it just resonated so deeply as true to me. 4 score 100 years ago. I don't even know. It's not 4 score because like score's 12 or 24 or something. I don't know. Go 400 days ago, which was August 30th. I experienced my most radical paradigm shifting awakening. And I say radical because in retrospect, I reckon I've kind of been a little bit awake the whole time. And my awakening, if I may speak personally, and I'm sure that, someone can hear this and be like, oh, that's kind of me too. And I encourage that because I'm special. So are you. And like my awakening in this life to my beingness has in part, I don't know, I guess I'm being like circumstantially inclusive, has been a realizing of the sleepiness, rather, of the collective, which in my experience is just like everyone that's not me. As an example, this radical shift in my perception arrived with a kind of vision or like a seeing in my mind's eye that was like, what's the word, like here to? It's like, well, previous to that moment was beyond even my capacity to imagine impossibility. Like I was almost like seeing a vision in my mind, like that was sharper or clearer in a way than anything that I've ever seen on a screen, like on a TV or movie. And it was different, but almost clearer and sharper than what I would see in the mirror. Or I'm like reluctant to say when I look at you, because when I look at you, everything sharpens, everything brightens. So it's like less comparable. But I'd say like it's hard to say. Like, man, I distinctly remember I was 6 years old. The first time that I, in my mind, said I want to die. You know, 6 years old, and like my parents had very recently gone through, almost like going through divorce. That happened when I was 5. And I can't say that it affected me very much at all, actually. Not in and of itself. I was at that like ripe age where I wasn't alive long enough, and I didn't know enough of it to be like, oh my God, this is happening to me. And it like could happen any other way. It's just more life. Like, okay, this is happening. I have nothing to compare it to. But it did bring a lot of pain and suffering into my environment through their fighting, my father's rage and anger, arrogance, my mother's anguish and grief and suffering. I was 7 when, my memory sucks in that it's awesome at not hanging on to stupid things, or things that I like to enjoy over and over because it's never the same again. Like media quotes and things like that. I don't remember shit except what I make my own. So when I mention these like ages, it's significant to me. And that was like, it's an aspect of my living still. So I was like about 7 when my mother was crying really hard one day. And I can't remember if she called me into a room or if I went in to like inquire. I have a younger brother who's 14 months my junior to the date. I'm June 9, he's August 9. And I was born 2 months early, so I was supposed to be born August 9. Supposed to. So it's always been a cause for like significance, noticing, and my own uniqueness to myself and pattern recognizing in the world. But it was just me and her, and she was crying. She was in a lot of pain. And I knew had to do with my dad. And I just remember it was like the first time, I guess. Wow. Realizing now the reasons why it's memorable to me. She was kind of hugging me and or rather like hanging on to me. And it's the first time that I remember like somebody else's like tears on my shoulder, on my clothes. My mom's not really a hugger or a kisser, or family's just not affectionate at all. And I'm not even exaggerating. Like if I were to count the amount of times I've kissed my nephews, and especially my little nephew, who's like, I don't know who I want to be when I grow up. He's like 2-ish. He's a Taurus. And he's born at the end of April. I would be in the thousands. Because every time I kiss him, there's so many. I never got kissed like that. If I'm generous, I can count the amount of times my mom's kissed me on my fingers. Not for not loving, but as like a karmic candlestick holder for that aspect of humanity's ache and pain and fear that keeps us separate. And I don't know how I really framed it in my mind, because it feels like the way I'm going to share with you, but it's so mature. It's so like old. But that's also how I remember it. And maybe it was inspired by something that she kind of said. I just know how I felt by the thought. Being like, it's like, okay, like I'm the eldest son. And now I'm kind of like the dad, and kind of like the husband. I gotta take care of us. This age I don't remember as much. I think it was like 8 or 9 or 10. Because I remember the age less. I just remember where I was. It's my uncle's basement. He has some children that are like 6 and 8 years older than me. So like they babysat us a lot, and when we were kids. So like the end of the 80s and the 90s, the world was more encouraging, and it hadn't really fractured the collective family unit so much, so that at least that like extended families, and I was part of a really, really large one. We still got together and like ate food and listened to music loudly, and all the kids played and all the adults played. So everyone is playing, and I'm in the basement by myself because I can't put my book down. It's so me. And it was Christopher Pike, The Last Vampire, I think number 5. There were 7 books. And I started the series at book number 2. And I read them through 7, and then I read the first one last. I would love to get my hands on them again to reread them. Because thoughts frame you, and feelings are what we're made of, and emotions are the consciousness that we choose. And so that's the power of literature. And this Last Vampire, it's a heroine. And you know what? Straight up, I don't know what the chicken or egg came first, but when I'm watching like a movie with my mother, or over this last year and a half, I've had a unique opportunity to spend time with her. Unique, not because I haven't spent a fucking shit ton. I tell you already, I gotta take care of her. I'm never leaving her behind or running away quickly. But we'll watch things whenever, and it's like just noticing all the different like women in whatever we're watching that I'm like, she's so hot. It's like I fucking love that. It's always the badass women. It's like it hardly matters anything else really, actually. But that's not different than how I look at all people. It's the attitude. It's like fuck yeah. And so this Last Vampire is so badass. And as I was reading it, I got to this paragraph or something, and I read it, and I don't know what it was, but the way that I read it, it's interesting. I'm so easily and casually telling you this, and up until now, I've probably told 3 people. I hadn't told a soul from when it happened at this time. So like, we'll call it 8 or 9, till at least in my early 20s, mid 20s, telling someone, like another human, another live thing for the first time. Not out of fear. That's my intuition even then was my hesitation is the recognition that it did have something to do with fear, and it wasn't wholly unwounded. But my concern to not concern. Not have anybody be like worried or like afraid. Because even then, I've always been pretty fucking independent. And although asking for help has been a hard pain to experience, like I really put it off because I didn't want to feel being denied help. So it wasn't until last year, around spring, when I was in so much suffering. And before the recognition of, I want to say this community, but I really mean the kind of ascension spirituality community that I would say is attempting as best as it can from its present paradigm to be this community. So I was very alone and entrenched, because that feels muddier than embedded, within my old community, my up until now lived community, the now then, which was like the quintessential spiritual community, being a leader in my field of yoga and philosophy and love. I had nothing left. I couldn't work. I couldn't cope alone. And so I reached out and asked for help and admitted a vulnerability that with practice, I have always kind of at least gotten to when it comes to my intimate relationships, whether it's a best friend or like a lover, which is really like, I was gonna say like, so a boy or a girl. But really all my friends that I could ever really call friends were best friends. I just prefer that one-on-one engagement, because otherwise the expression of my purpose and persona has always been like the service and for the many. So a lot of interaction with like lots and lots of people, which I love. And like, I even mean just walking out in the world, like being myself in the world. I'm really open and myself. So, and I share a lot of, like I share quite a depth of vulnerability. And by that, I mean honesty. So that when it comes to any other kind of hangout, friendship, relationship, or anything like that, I need to be alone. And that never needs to be just by myself. although it almost, I mean, it's most of the time. And even now, when I look back and put this caveat of like, I want to be able to feel like I can be alone even when you're here, because it's not isolation, it's just space. It's not even like quiet. I need to be quiet. You need to be quiet while I'm quiet. No, none of that's real. It's just like I can fart and burp and pick my nose, and we'll laugh if it's funny, or we won't even notice if it's not. Like that kind of alone, just comfort. It's a bit of a pipe dream, but one I believe in. So as I read these words, like something, like a sensation started to creep over me. Like a pulling. My 34-year-old personality would describe it like a kind of shift in my relationship to gravity, but also differently because I'm imagining the story. And so the story I was imagining kind of took on a life of its own. And then it kind of progressed to like show me different, I want to say, like, it felt like memories, but not mine. It was really weird. And just to refer to what I said earlier about like the sharp, like visual acuity of my most recent like splash reality, or under it, or over it, or in the middle of it. There was no, that's not what I mean by visual. Like it was visual, like how I would remember what I ate in the morning, which I'm learning, or have learned that for some people includes some aspect of that visual, like recording, replaying, or something like that, which I've been, in retrospect, like blind my whole life, apparently. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but hey, this is what conversations sound like, right? High five. Thanks for joining me. If there's any doubt, full earnesty, I fucking love you. You're wicked. Thank you for holding space to be you and me be me. Bah, 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 bah. That's how I kiss. As a yoga teacher, and like guide, and like just a listener, you know, since that day with the tears on my shirt, on my shoulder, there have been many. My shoulders have held the tears of many. Happily and in honor. And in a growing kind of like retribution for what, like as my breath, as my blood, as which that fire that pumps me, what like life and beauty deserves of better. Only a couple students. I've got like actual like a memory of this, but then I like it's like I learned something like, that's possible, and I look into it and I read it and I find out everything I can about it. And it was weird to me because the student would be like, I don't understand what you mean when you like, visualize, this color or this shape or something like that. It's like all I see is like blackness. I don't see anything when I try and visualize. I was like, wow, you can't visualize? That's crazy. I could say something like that straight up to someone and like it'd be received sensitively. Because my fucking voice oozes with love. It's the only language I speak. Which is why I can hurt people so much too. But then throughout all this experience, it's like, I think I was one of those people. I thought it's like, all I see is black. It's like, yeah, that's all you see. Like, what else are you going to see? Your eyes are closed. When I see things in my mind's eye, it's like, or what I would have said is, I don't know how I would describe it. I guess it's really feeling based. And I don't know, I kind of like see the memory, but it's not like playing out before me. It's, I don't know, like almost more like a still shot. I guess it's hard to describe, but that's very much what I endeavor to express and teach, the truth of the assumptions and presumptions, which is to say the ass of you and me, assume, or in earnesty, our, or with our predefinitions, which, like, what else are we going to use? Just allow them to be malleable. Just how different all of our perceptions can be and can allowed to be. This is blue. I see gray, but it's blue. Well, I don't. Okay, like I know blue. I would call this gray. Let's ask someone else. What do you see? Blue. Okay. You see blue. You see blue. I see gray. Why are we arguing? Isn't it just like, yes, yes, yes? And then last year I was going through the very like radical and easier to like relate shift in my experience as I had, like, by the end of 2017, self-diagnosed divinely, some miracle that I hadn't figured this out already, that I was strongly, that I strongly fit into the neurological pattern of is it? That's funny. I'm actually forgetting the acronym because it means so little to me. ADD or ADHD or whatever. Which actually finding out was a huge relief. It came with all of its own trials, obviously, but all good things do. And not all good things need those trials to be anything but fun and adventurous. But that's the paradigm that we're moving into. Just going through life feeling so different and not understanding, like, why all like certain things are just so fucking impossible for me. And being like guilted and shamed as much as anybody from anyone else pales in comparison to what I'm capable of doing to myself and did do up until never again, which is possible. When you recognize that, and nothing is ever really quite the same more than once. So whenever it suits you, something can be always the same or never the same. You get to decide on what's being, you know? Are we like collecting the relevancy of everything I've said so far to the titles? If not, here's like a hint drop, and then I'll continue my storytelling. Unless you decide, nothing matters. Things matter to you, but nothing matters. So I had this like experience, but I was like fucking, I was still a kid with quite an expanded imagination and like room for possibility. I was definitely 7 because that's when we Catholics do our first communion, and I was 7 years old when like I was like leafing through this like the gold book, like your Eucharist fucking guidebook, doing fucking Eucharist class because you need lessons to do that shit. Well, it's just indoctrination. But I was there 9 to 3:30, more or less, 5 days a week for 13 years. I'm only including elementary school because, or is it 13 years? What, from 5 or 4 to 13? Sorry, so like 9 years. I'm only including elementary school because in high school those numbers get really varied. I skipped a lot. Because I've always like managed what I believe in, and so at like 7 years old, like they're telling me about Jesus and me eating his body, and that wasn't even my question. And like even at that age, I could like subconsciously be aware of like the political correctness of challenging certain things publicly or even just outside one's own body. But just reading like it being discussed and whatever it was probably just like we can imagine it, because my thought was like, it's like, how do we know Jesus is real? Because everything I've learned so far is like, I don't know, couldn't that all just be a lie? Now I didn't reach my conclusion at 7. I'm forever undone when it comes to love and truth and truthing and loving. Love and truth are what you talk about, and loving and truthing is what you keep doing. But the impressionable remark that I made to myself was like, if I were Jesus, I would be so pissed off at what's being done in my name. At 7, I didn't even know about the Crusades then. You know what I mean? Like, let alone everything else, the Vatican, and just, you know, diddling. No, I was like just talking about like church and school and all the bullshit. So I had, if I was connecting to a wall, so yeah, join me in taking a few breaths. It can be early where you are, so maybe closing your eyes might be too sleepy, but just relax and let your eyes get heavy and your tailbone and your ears. And the tops of your shoulders are light. Like the most comfortably. Like when we were children, but in our imagination. And a parent gripped us from under our arms to lift us up that lightedness. So heels heavy, like in cool sand on a hot day at the beach. While your upper body is being lifted, if like by a giant. Just a parent that loves you giantly. You can feel that love. Like heartbeats, chest against chest. Let nothing else change except weirdly being like in an inner tube, floating on a lazy river. And the currents moving through you. Around heaven and through the earth. Enjoying the heart to heart. Enjoying the star to start. Like the poles of us, the crown and the root. Are creating a kind of pressure, but it's as high you can relate to feeling, and low as low into as low as you can go. So that in between those two extremes, from top to bottom, though all of it's you and me, in the middle, our heart, our whole body. Feels radiant, like a glow. that you don't have to wear shades to see in every detail. And just like everything else, easy. Breathing. If your eyes are closed, notice your next breath. And then keep going. Feeling free at any time to open your eyes to whatever you like. As we keep going together. There you go. Good internet. We fixed you. So those unique episodes of imagery, memory, and sensation, where I was inevitably always like slowly kind of pulled to lay down on the floor, was beyond my comprehension, beyond my understanding. Every time it happened, I dreaded it because it was so intense in its experience. And it changed, kind of morphed a little bit. I couldn't say for how long it happened. Could have been a couple months. Could have been a few weeks. At most, maybe more than like once or twice a day. I'm sure that days went by without it happening. But it was always an oh no every time it started. Only when I was alone. Or someone else was there, like my little brother, I could kind of hide it. But it always ended with a weird liking. Like right after I say, like, I hope that never happens again, I wouldn't say, but I would feel like looking forward to experiencing it again. They eventually stopped. I had a similar experience, but less memory. Very much still in the body at like 19. And then all this crazy business 14 years later. And why I share this with you all, including The Last Vampire, is that none of it's inherently meaningful. Everything that I've shared with you, every detail, is not in and of itself Elliot defining. It's all been an exploration, an exercise, a practice of consciously choosing. 8:33. Which is 8 and 33, or 11 and 3, or 11 twice by each 3 just one at a time, or 6 and 8, And then obviously 14. All meaningless except to me. And so defined by what I decide to perceive. And there's a lot of misunderstanding, to put it the most kindly. Because if I were to be more rude, but and just highlighting that aspect of it, there's like obvious, like there's conscious deception, but even inclusive in that, it's all like a limitation in perception that throws around, for better or worse, words like for better or worse, like they know what it means. Part of that loss of truth is the idea that you can tell anybody else so what, it's anything is supposed to mean. We'll stick to that because I guess that's where we're leading. For better or worse, sickness, health, death to us part, that all has this, like, I'll say traditional and like collective interpretation, and yet no meaning. My parents got divorced. I bet your parents got divorced too. Or at least maybe that you lived through some time in your life where your parents fucking hated each other. So I don't know about you, but the way that I kind of decided, based on my experience, it's kind of a little hot. Maybe I'll be like, I'm not getting divorced. I'm gonna be so 34 years old, never been married, no children, and not worried. And if I'm continue to be honest, which you can count on, those things have never really ever been in doubt for me. Except obviously for when I doubted the like sacred responsibility of being alive or dying, because that's a part of like the karmic history or backlog that we share. So I had to, in my own way, experience. Because like even from my mid-20s, I'd say, because it took some like maturation of my like social understanding to accept that I would never be a job person, and that I deplore or detest and all the fucking fuck yous of working. And just for the sake of, I don't know who's viewing, like I work all the time. I don't ever not working. Part of like my life's path, North Node, 6th house in Taurus. Well, I have Venus in Taurus. so in her domicile, although it's just at the end of my fifth house, which suits me just fine. House of romance and pleasure, give, receiving, all right, and like play and children and things like that. It's been to relax. It's like, Elliot, stop. Just like enjoy life. It's like, that's all I want to do. Everyone. And by everyone, I mean you. Because I'm not the person that like needs everybody to be all fucking hunky dory for me to be hunky or dory. I am the person that needs that opportunity to rise at some point in their own soul's like path. That needs to be a certainty, but it doesn't need to be at this time. Or it can be fucked, but I'm not the one that's going to decide. That's like their opportunity. But the opportunity needs to be there. And I need to know that in some way. And I need to know that at this time, for anybody that keeps working and loving and living, despite all the injustice, that they get to play. And that they don't need to work to get there. Because however much effort anybody needs to express to earn that kind of ease or luxury has already been fucking paid. If you're alive, like at this time. You did it. You done it. We're owed. Of course, we're also the ones that like spiritually design loan forgiveness. Love forgivingness. And this has to do a lot with the social manipulation, which I'll readily admit, because this is the kind of the direction that I'm going in. And I'm really excited. For graduation today, I'm going to do a concert. I'll post something to express it. Because fuck, today we're playing. Even work's going to be played today. But this is why we cultivate the skill of discernment, because I watch a lot of media. I've gone through lives where parts of my life where I haven't at all. And you know what? I'm not going to say right now why. All the reasons that is the most divine and a part of my mission. But I will say that just like people can perceive really differently. No one watches anything like I watch things. And that doesn't put me in competition, because there's no ranking. There can be similarities, and I endeavor for to be lost in an ocean of soul similarities by the way that I look at things. Before the end. But without discernment, we get swayed. It's not our current, it's somewhere else's. And if you're plugged into mainstream media, which means, to be clear, Netflix, all television shows, all movies, if you're ever exposed to commercials, if you expose yourself to the global arena as far as news, science, progress, education, but then let's speak now, like, and then going back to that same kind of like incomplete list or incomplete list. Speaking very practically, it's like now, if you're still plugged into shows and movies and the news in any way about a world that is not in front of your face every day, right? Like, I stopped watching, checking the weather. Well, really, when I stopped gallivanting around the city, and I really mean all over it, teaching yoga under like the routine of practicality. But even then, not that much. And then, especially then, never again. Like, if you want to know the weather, you look outside. If you want to know what it's going to be like tomorrow, you reason by what yesterday was and what tomorrow looks like it's going to be based on where you are. And like, if you're not doing that, then you're letting, you're absolutely letting the Weather Channel, the meteorologists, and the people that pay them design your reality. Have you ever heard of cloud bursting? It's this like pastime where apparently like people can like look at clouds. They're just gonna like stare and they go like, boom, boom. I don't know if they do the hand thing. I think it helps. Boom, boom. And make clouds disappear. It's fucking crazy. And like a thing. So you can make clouds disappear. You could probably make the sun come out on a cloudy day. And if it's like something degrees in the shade or under the clouds, and then something degrees when it's like a cloudless day, then could you imagine that you just like defined your sunny day? Because I can. But if you like create expectations and a collective of what the day is going to be like, then you have like a bunch of people in the back of their mind, more or less, bursting their own clouds. The thing is, though, that power is like super weak. One person could over one conscious being can overwhelm like 9 infinity unconscious beings. Because power isn't information. Power isn't how you use it. Power is source alignment. And it doesn't even need to be more complicated than that. It's complex, like intricate, like your personality, like your heart, like snowflakes, and like the blooming of like petals on some flower that's got a lot of them. I love complex. I slay complicated. Because complicated only arises when somebody, it's got to be someone, decides to not simplify. And that's only ever done out of fear. Their own, or to strike fear into. No fear. Just drink love. It's like, how do you know you're so finishing? I guess I'm going backwards in the list of my title, and then I'm gonna close because today is like a fucking last action hero, superhero pack kind of day for me, I think. Or like I intend it to be. Because I'm really excited. And it's graduation day, yo. I insist on, in my universe, being able to love everything and still hate things. To me, they are not. To me, they're either on the same spectrum, and so they're never apart, or they're not on the same spectrum, so I can do them both at the same time. Because the truth is, if anybody that examines anything, you never hate anything you don't love. You just might have to like get more specific about the what of the love. It doesn't need to be an entire person. You can hate people and still love them. Because you can't hate anything that you don't care about, even if it bugs you. And all care is love. That's why in my certainty defining meaning, whenever I hear careful, instead of the lie, the switch in perception of being like, be afraid. Like, right? That's what being it's like, be careful. It's really just saying, be afraid. Be afraid. Oh, be afraid. Bye. Have a nice day. Be afraid. So what the fuck am I being careful for? I don't understand. I hate that. I hate that. Obviously, I grew up with a lot of be careful, Ellie. It's like, look, I'm accident prone because I choose to be. So that when I'm older, like, I don't know, 33, 34, I don't fucking, like, I'm graceful as like a frog. Because I bumped into everything enough to know that how to not. But I'm not fucking afraid. Instead, like, fill yourself with care. Be careful. That's how that's courage. I define. It's like when I'm about to cross the street, busy on a busy street, and I live in Toronto, so it's every street is practically busy. Like globally, like comparing. You're damn right I look both ways, like a bunch of times. And then when it's the most relevant, I look in the direction that could kill me. It's not because I'm afraid. It's because I care. I care at least that much. To be alive. And to also like account for the mistakes of others. You know, and that's how we get each other back. Because I'm gonna still bump into things. I'm still gonna like almost break things by accident. But if in those times someone is being full of care, then they'll be there for me like I'm there for you, you know, just picking people. to catch me or to help me out or to hit the brakes suddenly because I'm being an ass. And I just wasn't paying attention. Then we get each other's back. And sides and front too. Just wherever we're giving our care. And so I'm going to make judgments, but they're not character judgments. They're social judgments and conceptual judgments. Divorce and my beef with it is that it very insidiously shapes the paradigm around marriage at all. It's not that once you're married, you have to figure everything out. And if you find yourself in like a bad relationship, that you're just stuck with it. It's that it creates the opportunity of that thinking. Because in truth, everything is relative. Everybody is nobody and somebody and everybody. The specifics matter less than the choice you make. And you get to make the choice. Except for when you don't, and I'm just leaving that aside. Like with arranged marriages and blah, 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 blah. Like that's not what I'm talking about right now. Commitment isn't circumstantial. Commitment is extreme. And at the same time, it feels like somewhere in the middle all the time. All right, let's bounce around a little because I can feel it closing. We talk about sovereignty, union with yourself, being self-sovereign. And the inspiration for the idea of this share, you've been the inspiration for what I've actually shared. Despite the lawnmower. All the noise in the world is meant to kill us, which is why I fight it. And I don't fight it like unhappily. I'm a warrior. I do it because I like it. And I don't bemoan it. Oh, noise! Like when I close all the windows, I close the doors, I close the shades. It's cloudy today, so I'm not missing out on the sun, and all of that interrupts some of the vibration coming my way. Also, my own like compression waves of fuck you, like interfere, and then ultimately I decide at which point I'm gonna like how it's gonna affect me emotionally, and it's my responsibility to determine all these things. And if I don't, then I'm wondering. And I'm a good, big old fan of wonder. But when you wonder about everything, you don't know anything. And if I were to say that's part of this new paradigm that we're creating, the we being the cosmic, is, if I were to put it simply in a way, By that I mean not the only way. We're moving into a paradigm where we are embodying the truth that we can know things. And that knowing isn't entirely intellectual. And it's fucking absolutely not informational. It's none of shit matters. Things that you know isn't the data. It's how we choose to be. It's who and what we choose to be. And so decide we are. It's the aspects of ourselves that are eternal. But what the fuck can be eternal if we're always changing? And if we're always changing, then what can be eternal? What aspect is going to be unchanging? It's not going to be my hair. It's not going to be the color of my skin. It's not going to be my abilities. But it can be my choices. And those choices are sovereign of materiality. But that's where they play out. The reason for this share was inspired by my own hold on, I've got to take a breath. I'm very sensitive to sound and discordant, unharmonious noise pollution. I'm especially riled up by, and I can't quite push it all away. I want it gone. I live in an apartment building, so there's a few hundred people. About half of them face this area. It's kind of like an enclosure, like most apartment building complexes. So there's another apartment building across from me, and like half the apartment building faces this. Of course, this sound can be heard all over the neighborhood. And it's ignorant. Part of our destruction, seem like the effort towards our destruction and our manipulation, because there's no reason, none, for that technology to be making any noise. Like, that's not the sound of blades of grass being cut. It's like does your car make that much noise? My car doesn't make that much noise. So there are motors even gas ones, that don't need to be that fucking loud. And I don't know, man, like, I guess, air blowing, vents, but I don't know, the wind doesn't make a rain sound. So do all this lawn care bullshit need to? And so beyond the significant sound, like medium perturbation aspect of what we are, aside from that, like we'll call it technical, this like one entity unconsciously is polluting the awareness of all these people. All of us, consciously or unconsciously, have to suffer this noise. if we're inside and we're watching something, it's got to be turned up. If we are quietly at work, well, it's not quiet anymore. And because we live in an entirely commodified world, neighbors aren't even friends. We're only here because we can afford it, or have to afford it, or try to afford it. And really, if we keep to ourselves, we'll never get kicked out. But if we interact with each other, I don't know. Who's got time for that? We gotta work. But those dudes outside, doing their job as best as they can to live, would probably be doing anything else if they were allowed to live and to do what they want. And if it was cutting lawns, which I appreciate, or just like landscaping, they would have already figured out how to make their machines quieter for their own sake and everyone else's. They probably wouldn't be cutting the low fucking grass at the end of fucking September, beginning of October, anyways. And at the very least, or most, in the world that we're creating, I could lean outside right now and be like, brother, do you mind, or like, I'm doing this right now. I can maybe do this later. Or, anyways, I'm just trying to work with you because I'm sensitive to the noise. I'm doing a broadcast. So I don't think they can hear you. Don't worry about it. I appreciate it. But it's going to affect me while I'm doing it. I know myself. I'm sensitive to it. Can you start from another place or do it later? Is there just some way we can make this work? And then they'd be like, yeah. I don't even feel like doing it today anyways. It'd be stupid. Because I was just bored. I'll you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to stop. I won't do it today. But in return for one thing, he says it was not. I'm like, what? It's like, yo, like, send me a link to the thing that you're watching. I want to hear it a lot more. I'm like, fuck you. Yeah. Let me do it. Because we're not in competition with each other. Except by the first definition of competing. Competition. Which means to strive together. That's competition. Let's all run a race. And somebody's going to come first, and somebody's going to come last. And we celebrate if speed is what we're aiming for. At the pace of every runner. Because the first is the new fastest, and the last is the new, is the new slowest. Which is probably, by virtue of all our helping each other, faster than our old slowest. And everyone in between is somewhere on the spectrum of newness. And we accomplish together. I'm gonna end now. So let's, in a moment, I'm gonna take a moment to sum up what I'd like to say finally, because I love you, and I am deciding that this is more than I choose to bear. YouTube hates you and it hates me, which is why I can't easily see the title of my share right now. It's not anywhere. I have a big old screen of my face, which I don't need to see. I don't need to see me. Hi, I'm on the screen. Cool, good. I'm not off the screen. I don't give a fuck. I don't need to see me, let alone need to see some reversed image of me. You're not even seeing me. What ear is this to you? If you turn, if you're like there and you do a turnaround thing, you're like, that's his left ear. That's my right ear. Why are you seeing a horizontally inverted picture of me? To fuck with your brain and to fuck with us, right? It wants me to like me, so it gives me the image I see in the mirror. It's like, oh, look, you look great. Look, don't you look familiar? Yeah. Because if I were to look at me the way that other people see me, I'd be like, whoa, I look like that? It's like, yeah, but who looks at themselves? And you're going to see a version of me that you won't see. You're seeing the mirror me. Which means that when we meet in person, we'll see each other and be like, well, I won't see you, right? Because I can't. But you'll see me. No matter how much time and rapport that we've built, if it's unconscious, you have to actually do the mental and like scaffolding, like reworking of being like, oh shit, like it's still the same person. And that unfamiliarity is due to the video, the programming, the plugging, the plugged in trickery. Which is why, here we go. This is what I meant to say. Which is why, even just now, wherever we've been, where you've been to, whatever you've been plugged into, if you just stop and give yourself space to be without the impressions of the lies of the enslavement system, then certainty as a concept would inevitably and inherently start to be experienced, because that is what you are. And there's nothing creating this constant buzz on many levels. It's not even just conscious. Like, there is subliminal fuckery. I'm not conspiracy theorying. Like, I know it. I've experienced it. I've seen it. Like, I've seen it. It's there. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, there it is. I thought so. Felt like it. That's fucked up. Of like, don't be sure, don't be sure, don't be sure, confused, be confused, be uncertain. What the fuckers don't realize is that you can be, instead of becoming uncertainty being a fearful thing, uncertainty can be a part of the adventure, which it is. But it can only be a part of the adventure if certainty is also a part of the adventure, right? But they're not. It's not a protagonist and antagonist. It's a team. Because how do you explore the uncertainty if you don't feel certain about anything? It's hard. It's almost unreasonable. But we got to start somewhere. And our children deserve better. To start with some certainty and let that certainty be us and our love for them and the world we've created for them. And what we ask them to do is what we would do if we had to, which is why my children will never go to school, but they will learn alongside kids. I'll teach them. Probably you will too. And they won't have to memorize shit. They'll learn so many ways to play and to find out things that they want to know. Not by looking things up, but by questioning. and being certain that they can come up with their own answers, and that they're never going to get in trouble with themselves for their questions or their answers. And because of that, they can never get in trouble from anyone or anything, because they're sovereign. So how do we expect to be sovereign in all the different ways if we can't be certain what we are? If you don't know who you are or what you are, what's sovereign? What's certain? Now, you can be certain that shit don't matter. And then you're right. You can build certainty about your own sovereignty however you choose. But choose you must. And if your choosing leads to a choosing of the same thing again, you haven't chosen. That's not a judgment. That's me and you working together. It's like, oh shit, I thought I chose. I do this all the time. Right? It's like, oh, I'm still bothered by this thought, or I'm still having this thought. I'm still wondering about it. It's like, I'm not following through. I don't follow. Oh, so there must be another like level of uncertainty, and it keeps coming up. So it must matter to me, because that's my intuition. So rather than just let it persist, I'm going to explore it and decide something about it. Who do you love? How do you know? Like, if you love someone, and let's talk about the love of not just everyone, but someone more than anyone. Someone you would marry. How do you know? How do you know it's going to happen? That's the biggest fucking bullshit lie that has never sat well with me. And then with like more life, it's like, oh yeah, because it's fucking stupid. And it removes the responsibility entirely from the how. It's like, how do you know? Like, everyone changes. You know, maybe they're going to change into someone that you don't like, and then, you know, they want to go there and you want to go there, and then, you know, c'est la vie. You know, become polyamorous, or get divorced, or blah blah blah. Just not be. You have a way out. The one I marry is not going to be my choice. My life is my choice. The woman I marry is going to be the woman like that I can't not choose. Right? Like, I'm certain because I'm not helping this. There's no reason. There's no logic. And there's all the reason and all the logic. But if I just say, fuck that, fuck that, fuck that, I'm also stuck with my truth of, fuck, I really love you. In this way. That's going to be forever, I reckon, because it always has been. Right? So I know certainly that I'm going to be this person's friend for the rest of my life, even if I never see them again. Because the best that I do in my life with love for love is in no small part because I know that person is alive or has been. And I love that. And the best that I do is it's worth that. That'll never change because it's not based on anything that's changeable. It's not what someone has done. It's not what they'll do. It's not a promise. It's not an attraction thing because everything is attractive. Everything is attraction. Everything is attractive. And I'm not even just saying that. Like, am I not attracted to some people? I'm not attracted to a lot of people. I'm actually not attracted to most of the women that people say are pretty. Models, actresses. If you're not badass, first of all, you don't even come close to qualifying. Sorry. But also, if you're like lean and scrawny and built like a prepubescent boy, I'm especially not going to be attracted to you. I'm just never been my thing. And that's how I'd put it now. But how I would put it maybe before with my like in-depth, more great awareness of just like, I don't know, yeah, pretty girl, yeah. Whether it be at the club or on TV or in the streets or anything like that, like that's never been my head turner. And it's not because I'm black. Do you want to know the truth about that? As a non-black person, but that can be everything and anything. It's just like culturally, permission to be a man. Yeah, just less social conditioning to not be a man. And really, if I'm being frank, to be homosexual. I like my women looking like women. Hips, thighs. I never met a woman that didn't have a bum. And no matter what size your breasts, they're my kind. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna like be attracted. I'm like not sexually attracted actually to anyone until I kind of love them in some way. And I posted like another topic because I got inspired by someone sharing about asexuality and things like that because I was like, oh, there's another one of my that paradigm shifting things for me. I'm like, I might be asexual, and I joke because it's like, oh, labels are so stupid. So it's like, oh, asexuality is actually just like sexually responsible. Biologically, it's responsible. Because I don't know. I mean, I'm moving, trending away. You know what it is? It's because I'm more comfortable. The humming of that fucking thing has shifted. But I have a lot that I get to do today. But I guess I'll finish that thought and then I'll say, hey. I've never, ever looked at another human being and been like sexually aroused. Like beyond like looking at someone like a naked woman. But then like just because my pecker is hard doesn't mean like I want to use it. And just because I want to use it doesn't mean I don't mean my hand. Like I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I guess it was a thing, but I thought it was like really just like I didn't know it was like a self-identifying like part of like the normal population thing. But really, like you just see someone and you're like, I want to have sex with that. I didn't know that. Anyways, that's a topic for another discussion. But apparently, it got said. Must be because I love you. Oh yeah, just reminding myself of the title. Notice that when I get close to the computer, it weirds out. Yeah. Sovereignty, certainty, commitment, yoga. Obviously, I'll end with yoga. Union, marriage. All of this is the practice of deciding. Who you are, what you stand for, what you accept. And if you're not sure, that's okay. But that sureness is never going to come from outside of you. And then further, that lack of certainty is what's killing you. And that can be, in practice, due in part from like insecurity, which I get that. And most of my life there's been a complete lack of certainty about anything, stemming from a great deal from my own low self-esteem, lack of self-worth, and that. But for us in this community, what we're moving into, and so my hope by all this sharing, beyond getting closer to you, is it can also just be an awareness thing. Like, oh, I just really haven't, in every way, brought the light of my awareness onto what I am certain about. And I right in my own kind of like spiritual, karmic unfolding, healing, and like in birthing / dying, part of that was almost like a self vulnerability of like an admission of my own certainty around love. And what greater universe am I going to belong to? What if we're creators and we manifest our reality, then you can't manifest anything until, if you're not sure about it, what's to come together then? Yoga, yoking, yeah, hatha, the sun and moon. It's like if a thing is linked, the thing is linked. It only breaks if we don't believe it. And then as an aspect of certainty, I'll end in this. As an aspect of certainty, it can, I've kind of mentioned this, but I'll reiterate, it can entirely depend on you. Like like being in love, I expressed. Did you hear? That didn't take work for me. My love for that person, the proverbial person, has nothing to do with them. And will continue to not. It doesn't ask anything. And that's a part of the certainty. not only does it just not stem from anyone but me, but it almost doesn't even stem from me. Not the not the ego that's separate, but the ego that's connected to something that's not ego. As much as I didn't decide to have these fingers and this nose, I mean, I did. Did I? Who the fuck cares? All I know is that some part of this I've already decided yes to, or there is no yes or no. And when you live from that part of yourself and be certain that you can find it, then you can be certain about a whole fucking lot. Because feel the feet on the floor. It's not that it's certainly there, because you may certainly one day float, but you're certainly feeling it. So start there. Don't allow yourself to change your mind. Give yourself more credit than that. You're continuing to inform. And then be careful to not call uncertain things certain and make yourself a liar. It's okay to not be certain, but don't beg for certainty. When you're still in the space of being uncertain. Only the certain parts of us can connect to our eternity. Everything else in temporality is the adventure. It's the life. It's to give movement to that which will always be. And it's not even a proving thing. It can be a refining thing. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't even, maybe it can't even be refined. It's just like let's live love. So we made a universe. A bunch of shit for us to go through. So when we get back to eternity, it's which could be blink back, blink back. We're did you see that way that we loved you? Just like that. I was way around. And then we'll keep going. I love you. I'm gonna namaste. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for being you. Thank you for sharing your fun and your energy. I can't wait to be neighbors. And let the grass just fucking grow. Because I'm certain that my love for you and that my love for this planet is worth my life. And standing in and standing for. And never letting go. And I'm certain, but only recently, that doesn't need to be on my shoulders anymore. That instead it can be in my arms or hand in hand or on my back, but a piggyback ride. I wish us everything.